So what do you think would happen if we all just took a little more time to listen? What do you think we could learn about ourselves? What do you think we could learn about each other? What do you think we could learn about the world around us? I ask this because there was a core part of my career where my primary job was to listen. Now that in and of itself is not terribly unique. There's a lot of careers and a lot of jobs that require listening. But what was unique in my situation was the fact that I was listening to and interacting with over 350 million kids from around the world. You see, I had the privilege of co-founding and helping lead a company called Club Penguin. It was a virtual world for kids, and it ended up growing to become the largest social network for kids in almost every country that we were in. And what started as kind of this virtual playground that we had built for our own kids ended up growing into this massive community. And it was a crazy roller coaster ride. In fact, it ended up becoming successful enough that it was acquired by Disney in 2007. But the success didn't come from our creativity or our technical abilities. The success wasn't born out of our incredible business acumen or our marketing skills. No, in this case, with Club Penguin, the success was rooted in our ability to listen and to respond. And for us, it all started with emails. You see, back in 2004 or 2005, when we were first launching Club Penguin, tech companies and game companies were pretty notorious for having awful customer support. And it was a bit of a pet peeve of mine. And in fact, I took this kind of crazy idea and I thought, let's do things a little bit differently. Let's go ahead and just respond to all the emails we get. I know, let it sink in. But as a few dozen emails eventually turned into hundreds and then thousands, I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do this alone anymore. And so I set out to find someone who could kind of help lead a team and make sure that we were properly taking care of this community. But rather than go the traditional route of finding some sort of recruiter and hiring in some executive or some expert from another tech company, we decided, again, go do things a little bit differently. And so instead, I decided to look for this individual at a company that had provided me with consistent, high-quality customer service every single morning. Starbucks. And true enough, I looked around and I found the best manager here at our local Starbucks. His name was Nathan. And I encouraged him to join us on building a team to be able to look after this audience. And he did. And thankfully, what started with a team of 6 people huddled around a table in our little office ended up growing to over 300 people located in offices around the world, all reporting in to Nathan from Starbucks. But this team wasn't just about customer service and answering emails. They were really at the heart of everything that we were doing. And in fact, they were so dedicated and so passionate that at its peak, this team was responding to over 10,000 emails a day. I once shared this when I was speaking at an event in the Game Developers Conference in Austin. And at the end of the talk during the Q&A, someone raised their hand and they kind of sneered and they said, listen, if you keep responding to all these emails, isn't that just going to encourage them to email you even more? Yes, I replied. Absolutely, that's the whole point. But this team eventually moved beyond just emails because kids started creating their own blogs and their own forums. They started creating YouTube channels. They started talking about the game in all these outside sources. And so this team then started tracking tens of thousands of websites as we continue to grow and evolve and answering phone calls from kids around the world. But the magic of all this wasn't just the fact that we were listening. It was the fact that we were also responding every single week through new content that we were launching. And it was amazing. We ended up having this kind of real-time conversation that was happening with the community. And it was so much fun because every single week we had an opportunity to take their imaginations, their creativity, and turn it into reality. In fact, anyone who works there will tell you the best ideas, the most creative things all came from the kids themselves. And as a result, they ended up becoming the heroes of the story. They were the main characters. Our role was just to sit back and support. So what are some of the things that I learned during that process? Because we ended up generating this pretty massive listening machine. Well, for starters, I learned that kids can be pretty incredible when it comes to creativity and fearless in their creativity. For example, we decided to create these igloos that kids could kind of change around their furniture and modify as they wanted to. And we thought, maybe there'd be a lamp over here, maybe there'd be a couch over on this side, and maybe some other kid might change that around. Oh, no. They would take basic furniture items, and they would do so much more with it. For example, this kid decided to create a water park in their igloo, complete with a water slide, a wave pool, a beach. Another child decided to take furniture and create one of their favorite characters in Club Penguin, Antarctic. And I could show you thousands of these things, but it didn't just end with the igloos. One of my favorite parts of the Club Penguin community was their passion for rumors and lore and some of the ideas that they would come up with. And as a result, they would end up driving the narrative forward. One of my favorite stories is around how we ended up coming up with ninjas and launching ninjas in the world. Now, ninjas originally, the only real reference we had to them was on our original homepage, where if you clicked on the end, the little penguin would turn into a ninja. That was it. There was no ninjas in the world. But kids, regardless, kept coming up with ideas and stories around, every time we'd have like a bug in the world or there'd be a little glitch, I bet it was the ninjas. Sometimes they would find a little corner of the artwork where there was like a shadow, and it'd be like, oh, that's where the ninjas are hiding. And this wasn't just for a few days or a few weeks. This went on for months and years. And ultimately, this lore grew and grew. And we knew that if we were ever actually going to put ninjas in the world, it had to be epic. And so we did everything we could to bring all of their incredible ideas to life. It started by building up hype and building up the story and the narrative through the Club Penguin Times, which, interestingly enough, was actually read at the time more than the New York Times, which made our writers pretty nervous. But the Club Penguin Times, we began using it to seed stories and kind of start generating hype. And over the course of about 6 weeks, we kind of built to eventually finally launching what they'd all been waiting for, the ninjas in Club Penguin. Now, this wasn't just costumes, because again, remember, we had to make it epic. So it included belts that could be earned by leveling up throughout the game. It included a brand new area with a dojo and a sensei. And in fact, the game Card Jitsu that was ultimately launched was so popular that it was played over 100 million times in the first 10 days after launch. The kids were so excited about this. And naturally, because now we are part of Disney, this also resulted in merchandising. And frankly, the kids were so excited about this too. The toys and the card games and the ability for them to experience this both offline and online. But the part of this that I love the most was the fact that all of these crazy ideas came from the kids. This was all from their imagination. One of the other incredible things that we learned was how determined kids can be if they want to be and how organized they can be. You see, we obviously launched Club Penguin in English, but we knew over time that we were going to launch additional languages. And our customer support team came to us one time and started showing us how hundreds of penguins across multiple servers were organizing themselves into the shape of the Brazilian flag, asking for Club Penguin to be in Portuguese. Now, naturally, Portuguese wasn't the first language that came to mind. But we decided to do what we'd always done and listen to them. And we ended up launching Club Penguin in Portuguese. And in fact, Brazil, for the vast majority of Club Penguin's lifetime, was the second largest market only to the US. We also learned how caring kids can be and how they can care for one another. I will forever remember an email I received from a teacher whose students had been lobbying her for quite some time to be able to play Club Penguin during class hours. Now, naturally, because Club Penguin's a game, she'd been telling them no. But finally, when she slowed down enough, when she took a breath and she listened to why they were asking, she decided to change her mind. You see, one of the kids in the class was getting ready to go into the hospital. He was going to have to go through some cancer treatments. And the reason the kids were asking to be able to play together during class time was so that he could also log in from the hospital, so they could continue to play as an entire class while he was there getting his treatments. See, they didn't want him to go through an experience like this all alone. We also learned how incredibly generous kids can be. Every year we would hold an event called Coins for Change, where all of their hard-earned coins that they would earn by playing games and activities in the world, they would have the opportunity to donate. And then as a result, we would take part of our revenue each year and we would donate real dollars to various causes and charities based on how they had contributed their penguin coins. Now, these weren't small amounts. In fact, oftentimes, most years, they would end up donating billions of coins. And it just showed how passionate they were about this, how much they wanted to give. And in fact, over the years of Club Penguin's giving and of Coins for Change, Club Penguin has given over $18 million to fund a variety of schools and hospitals and medical centers and water projects all throughout the world. And environmental causes as well. And one of the coolest stats that I love is the fact that there's over 100,000 kids that are attending schools today that were built by Club Penguin. But aside from all the really positive experiences, there's also some struggles that kids would have and some frustrations that they would have. And those would come out in Club Penguin too. Oftentimes when the world around them was changing and there was major events and things happening, sometimes they would get frustrated with it and they would express their frustration through protests and through picketing. And in fact, a recent evidence of this was actually picked up by pretty major news media because it happened after the U.S. election. Now, I'm not getting political. I'm simply here to report the news. But this went on for several days in the Club Penguin world. But sometimes things would go even deeper. Sometimes not only would they share their frustrations or their disappointment with the world around them, with the world around them, but sometimes they would also share things in ways that they were hurting. Club Penguin was always filtered and moderated, but we still had visibility into what was attempted to be said. And normally, when you'd look at those chat logs, you'd see that kids were, maybe they were swearing or they were trying to see what they could get away with. They were trying to bypass the filter somehow. But there's other times where what they were saying was a lot more serious. In fact, over the years, we had to create relationships with authorities in almost every country that we worked in. Because oftentimes there would be kids, more often than people realize, there'd be kids who would share that they were being harmed at home, or they would share that they were at risk of harming themselves. And as painful as that was, and as difficult as that was for all of us to work through and to go through, it was pretty amazing when we would hear back sometimes from these authorities who told us that these kids had ended up being put into a better situation, or it ended up getting the help that they needed. You see, through the ups and the downs, the thick and the thin, we were all a community. We were having this real-time conversation with each other, and we were journeying together for many years. And I wish I could tell and encourage all of you, after we're done here today, to go log into Club Penguin. But unfortunately, I can't. You see, just a few months ago, after 12 amazing years, the web version of Club Penguin was shut down to make way for a brand new mobile game. And even though I haven't been with the company now for several years, I'll be honest, this hit me a lot harder than I expected. And I still don't know if I fully processed it all yet. But what was amazing to me was that it hit some of the kids a lot harder than I expected as well. In fact, these are just some images from some of their blog posts and their YouTube videos as they were struggling with the same thing. And what's interesting is many of them admitted that they hadn't logged into Club Penguin for years. You see, it's a web-based product, and naturally, as mobile's grown, they've moved on to mobile as well. But as I read through all of their articles, and as I spent time watching some of their videos, it was very therapeutic, actually. What I realized was that they weren't upset about missing the mini games. They're not sad about losing the ninjas or the activities that were going on in Club Penguin. What they were most afraid of, what we're all afraid of, was losing the incredible sense of community that had grown within the Club Penguin world. And I'm so thankful to have had an opportunity to be a part of that community. I'm so thankful to have had a front row seat to so many amazing kids' lives. And most of all, I'm incredibly privileged and honored. See, their creativity is amazing. I'm incredibly privileged and honored to have been able to serve side by side with such an amazing team that took their imagination and their creativity and brought it to life every single week. And so I just want to say, I firmly believe that our world would be a much better place if all of us were just a little bit more childlike. If we could learn from these kids and maybe be a little bit more fearless with our creativity, if we could help each other out a little bit more, if we could be generous with one another, if we could work together a little bit better, if we could become better at sharing when things are frustrating to us or are hurtful or harmful to us. Sometimes we maybe just need to take a breath and not take life as seriously, not take ourselves as seriously. But most of all, maybe for today, we can all start by taking just a little bit more time to listen.